What is up YouTube? Today I have a Borderlands for build over you guys, and for this one we have Drone Striker Rafa. As the name has suggested, in this build we are drone striking every enemy by using drone defense and drone assault. This build is perfect if you want something new, fresh, that isn't just like shooting a gun with Rafa. Before we get into the build breakdown, remember to like, share, subscribe. The mobile tick right up is in the description, make sure to check it out, and let's get in. So let me explain this build. As you can see here, I'm spamming a lot of drone striking. How am I doing that? Well, let me explain the two drone skills that Rafa has. The first skill is the drone defense. It says that whenever Rafa activates an ordnance, spawn an STRM glider, which is a drone that hover near him. That is the only part that you should care about. So the drone is spawned by activating an ordnance, and we can spam it pretty consistently by using a heavy ordnance, because whenever we equip it and unequip it, it counts as an ordnance activation and will spawn the drone. Let me just illustrate here. First, you click the ordnance button, a drone spawn here, right? Then you unequip it, click it again, another drone spawn. Then unequip it, re-equip again, and voila! Look at that, pretty insane stuff. Now, if you have gun equip speed on your enhancement, the re-equip and equip speed of the heavy get even crazier, which means you can get your drone way faster. So make sure to get that on your enhancement. The second drone skill that Rafa has is the drone assault. It says that whenever Rafa trigger or re-trigger an action skill and one of its drone other than enemy, and once it arrives, it explodes for corrosive explosion, and that corrosive explosion is equal to the health of the drone. So for drone assault to proc consistently, you would want to re-trigger or trigger your action skill pretty frequently, right? How do you do that? Well, you cannot use lens with this. You can use it, but it just isn't optimal because you cannot use ordnance while lens is active. However, we can use Piece Breaker Cannon in combination with Bullet Buddy Deluxe. Yes, these two skills can proc re-trigger a lot, but only if you are using an odd-fire gun. Why? Because Bullet Buddy Deluxe does not work with odd-fire gun. Like, the skill does not get activated. So when you activate it, it doesn't work, but it still counts as action skill re-trigger, which means we are proccing a lot of drone assault. So make sure to get yourself an odd-fire gun. No, the sticky or full elemental melee weapon doesn't work with this. Only those special odd-fire work with the re-trigger spam through Bullet Buddy Deluxe. This build also requires you to rebuy some of your key in order to have a smooth experience. So let me explain this rebinding. First, you would want to buy your ordnance with your action skill button, so that whenever you click the action skill button, it will also click the ordnance, so that the drone spawn and activate drone assault at the same time. So that means like no delay between drone strike, and that is just more DPS technically. Then you also would want to buy your reload and melee to your fire gun button. This would allow for more the right to stacking, because as you can see, one use has binded it. Whenever you shoot, you automatically gain the right to stack, and that is very nice because instead of doing 3 actions, you just have to do 1 now. But that should be a summary of the build and how it works. Now to the gear breakdown. The gun you would want to use are the special odd-fire gun because of the Bullet Buddy Deluxe re-trigger spam. And make sure when you are spamming it, you change the gun switch mode for the Bullet Buddy Deluxe spam to work. Now because I'm using confetti, make sure to get an odd-fire gun of each element for elemental matching purposes in this game. So I have a fire one here, corrosive one here, radiation, shock. That should be the guns you need for this build. For the ordnance, try to get any heavy would work. Here we need the heavy for the drone to spawn through drone defense. Then moving on to the rapid, try to get the accelerator part on it because it will provide you with action skill cooldown rate, which is very important for Piece Breaker Cannon. And we are also using now with caffeine in our specialization, so make sure to get one with a lot of charges. For the enhancement, there aren't much going on here. The only stat you should be looking for is the gun equip speed. For the shield, I think the best shield for this build is a Timekeeper new shield. Why? Because it provides you with a lot of max health and health regen, also some damage reduction. But the more important part is that this shield prioritize your health over having an actual shield. That means that you get a lot of survivability out of drone defense. How the drone defense damage transferring work is that whenever you take damage, about a tick later, you would heal for 40% of that damage taken. And this scale with skill point. So a 10 out of 5, I'm restoring 80% of the damage taken. 5 out of 5, I would only heal for 40%. Now, drone defense does not work with shield. It does not regen shield. It only regen health. So using Timekeeper here is actually great for survivability. For the class mod, the best class mod for this build is a Demolitionist with as much point into drone defense as possible, because it will buff the drone defense health, which means also buffing drone assault damage. And because it is buffing the card damage, it is actually increasing crazily with all the other formula. As a class mod, you can also use including the Philanthropo. You use it because you want to get Demolition so that you can spam your Fireport as an alternative bossing setup when the drone is too awkward for certain bosses, which I have experienced a lot. An Instigator is also interesting because it's provided with a lot of gun damage, and we can use the full spectrum arsenal and IM gun to transfer the gun damage into our drone damage. Now, IM gun say actually skill damage, but it is actually skill damage, of which that is a type damage that the drone is. For the firmware spot, you would want to get some point to red throwing for ordnance damage, splat radius, but the most important thing to get here is these two, Atlas X and Dead by O. Why? Because they provide us with gun mode switch speed. That is very important for our playstyle, because we want to switch to our normal gun mode to stack up the right tool. Then we want to switch back to our R5 mode in order to spam bullet but the retriggers. That is why we need more gun mode switch for smoother gameplay somewhat. But other than that, get some active skill cooldown rate through UVH5. Get throwing give us some ordnance damage, and airstrike give us splash radius, splash damage. Some combination of these three is great, but the most important part is that you get the Atlas X and ZBIO. To the skill tree, we put 5 points to rinse for more reload speed, which means faster the right tool. Prepare Prado for active skill cooldown rate whenever we reload, which is really nice. The trio is for more fire rate. It actually plays pretty well with the whole reload spam thing. I don't know exactly how, but just take this. Most if the other skill doesn't synergize well with this build. You can also take metal management if you are doing normal gun stuff, because the bullet body retrigger spam also work with metal management, and I might make a build on it someday. Then we move 5 points to drone defense, the whole point of the build. 5 points to the right tool, which is insane. It's stacked at 5 and each stack gives you 50% ordnance damage. So at max it is giving you 250% ordnance damage. And I also having 1 point here, so it is actually giving me 300%. This is where most of your damage come from. If you are able to keep the stack up, you don't have to worry about getting any other bonus because they are all additive. Finally, we have Drone Assault. Note that Drone Assault deal corrosive skill ordnance damage, so it works with the right tool pretty well. Then we put 3 points to brain jump so that our gun and also our piece breaker can crit and proc Jugra, which says that whenever Rafa critical hit an enemy, he gains action skill cooldown restoration. We put 5 points to the death hands so that our piece cannon can get more fire rate, which is nice for Jugra. I don't know how to pronounce this. And Instigator class mod. Maestro for skill damage, which also buff the drone. Finally, we put 5 points into Confetti. This is so that we can elemental match with the enemy, which has become very important ever since they kind of make the damage formula all additive. But elemental matching is still multiplicative, so this is very important to get it, and it also improves your normal and damage output in general. For the specialization, I'm taking Fragmentation Payload, which would give Ordnance a chance to critical hit and increase Ordnance critical hit damage. This works with the drone. Now with caffeine is so that we can get to our archer skill back faster through the use of rep kit. Full spectrum arsenal is so that our opponent's damage can benefit from our gun damage, of which we have some here. Finally, we are using bullet train is so that we can hip fire while sprinting and also some nice amount of gun damage. The hip fire while sprinting is pretty important because in some fights you would want to move around a lot for survivability, of course, and you also want to shoot at the same time to stack up the right tool. This is very important, even though it doesn't seem like that at first. I could see you taking out now with caffeine for I am a gun for more damage. Once again, I have to show you guys the rebinding. Very important. Make your gameplay so much smoother if you apply this. Remember, bind your action skill button to your ordnance button, bind your reload and melee button to your fire gun button. Maybe even change your gun mode to something convenient, like in my case it is a right mouse button, so that you can change your gun mode pretty fast. For the playstyle this build, for mobbing and bossing, first you would want to go into your normal gun mode, click fire gun a couple times in order to stack up the right tool. Because of our rebinding, it will automatically stack pretty fast. Then you would want to switch mode and press the action skill button, and because we also rebind action skill button to ordnance, it also spawns some drone and strike at enemy. Make sure that you are holding a gun with the element that is matching well with the enemy. So like again, a fresh enemy, I want to hold a fire gun. Again, a shielded enemy, I want a shotgun for confetti element to match. This build does quite a lot of damage for an underrated skill like drone assault. However, at the time of the recording, the skill is pretty buggy, like sometimes the drone can get stuck in some obstacle, making the skill kinda useless, like dysfunctional. When Gearbox fix this, I think this build will be quite the meta contender, but at this time I think this build is off meta. If you want to find something new and fresh to play with Rafa, I highly recommend you using this build. If you are struggling in bossing because of the drone being a bunch of dumbasses, you can switch to Philanthropo and Fireport for some easy boss melt. So that is it. Hope you find this video useful. If you did, remember to like, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. Comment down below on what you think. Join the Discord server and see you guys next time.